No, no, it was wrong. So. It's not happening to the
يا أبو محمد فين رايح؟ ماشي. You have work? Can't stay with us? على يسرك إن شاء الله حسب راحتك.
We're going to stop for taking two. We'll take you two.
Good to go?
Yes,
Are we live?
yes.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So we don't have to be so far away. We move up a little bit. Keeping all your quote-unquote distancing intact, yeah? Okay, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're now at halaqah number 8 in our halaqah, in our series of suluk. So today we have a very pertinent topic, particularly it's pertinent all the time, but it's very pertinent especially in Ramadan. And that is the detriments of the tongue. So previously we talked about controlling the two passions of the stomach and below the stomach. So now the detriments of the tongue, and also the tongue is connected to the stomach. And probably we mentioned that, and that in that, as we mentioned, if we are filling our stomachs with fuel, so that fuel also fuels the tongue. So fasting also is very, effective in bringing about control of the tongue also, because it brings control of all of those things. However, it also comes along with it a sense of weakness, and part of the weakness is the controlling of the tongue at the time of anger. And so therefore, Nabi Rasul mentioned particularly that if somebody starts, rancor with you, then what you're supposed to say, Inni sa'im, I'm fasting. Bas. Okay. So the detriments of the tongue, it's not that the tongue is all detriment. There's a lot of wonderful things, And we say that, the thing that distinguishes, the human being, we call him, in the language of logic, they call him haywan natiq, a speaking animal. Animals that they have, speaking, in other words, pointing to the intelligence. So we have intelligence and we're able to communicate that and translate that and manifest that on the tongue. So this is a unique, human qualities, and is a huge ni'mat. And when used properly, it is such a wondrous thing. But at the same time, likulli shay'in afa, as they say, everything has its drawbacks, its detriments, its blemishes. So the tongue has many. So there are many and diverse. Secondly, the heart takes pleasure in the movement of the tongue. Somebody says something untoward to us, so we need to get back to him. In Urdu they say jawab dena, right? We have to reply. You don't have to reply, right? But the heart takes pleasure because taking revenge or getting back, or sometimes making fun, or sometimes in ghiba, backbiting, and making everybody laugh by manifesting the faults of others. And so the heart, the base nature of the heart, or the base part characteristic of the heart, it takes pleasure in that. So that also fuels the issue. And it's part of, human nature, as you mentioned, it's human nature. If somebody says something untoward me, then I'm going to reply, and so forth and so on. And whatever comes to the mind or the heart, just speak it. So Islam is about submission. It's about bringing everything under control. And so tongue is very, very critical, as we're going to see in some ahadith which we're going to present. It's of the utmost importance. So there's no escape from the detriments except in silence. And the Arabs, they say, "Man sakata salima." Who keeps quiet, he keeps, he keeps in security. And as other of our pious ancestors, one of our pious ancestors, he says that "Ma nadimtu ala sukut, walakin nadimtu ala kalam mirat. Ma nadimtu ala sukut marra, walakin nadimtu ala kalam marrat." So I was never sorry, or that I kept quiet, but I was been sorry many times for speaking. So it doesn't mean that you would just keep quiet all the time, but basically keeping quiet is going to save us from a lot of travail. One. Number two, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from the characteristics, one of the salient characteristics of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was tul sukut. He used to remain silent for long periods of time. In other words, if there wasn't something important to say, he would not be speaking. And this is a sign of intelligent human beings. They don't speak unless there's something intelligent to speak about. Because all that we speak is either going to be for us or against us. Either in our mizan al-hasanat or mizan al-sayyat. Every word, every speech, everything that we say, it's under radar. It's being recorded on the right or on the left. So how to escape much of the travail of the tongue? To remain silent. And this is an art. Particularly when, it's the habit, you need to carry on. People get, actually, the way it is now is that people get nervous when there's quiet. For example, if we're riding in a car, we have to talk. Why do you have to talk? We can ride in the car and we can do zikr. We can ride in the car and we can read Quran. We can ride in the car and we can offer nafil salat. Particularly if we're in journey, if we're in journey, we're out of the city limits and we're actually musafir. Wonderful thing, we pass that time. So we don't have to talk. We don't need to feel like we need to be talking all the time. We need to be quiet most of the time and talk when it's necessary. Allah give me an honest tawfiq. So in the virtues of silence, some hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Sahal ibn Sa'd radiyallahu anhu, قال Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, من يضمن لي ما بين لحييه وبين رجليه أضمن له الجنة. متفق عليه. Sahal ibn Sa'd, the famous Sahabi radiallahu anhu, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whosoever gives me a guarantee to safeguard what is between his jaws, in other words the tongue, and what is between his legs, I shall guarantee for him Jannah." Two things, that's all we have to do. Of course, along with all the other orders and So that means that if guarding these two is going to take us to Jannah, not guarding these two things is going to take us where? Exactly the opposite. And since we don't want to keep the dars too long, so we have a sort of a longer hadith which has more things in it than just the keeping silent. But since it's a very comprehensive hadith, so we'll look at the entire hadith in its entirety. So عن معاذ بن جبل رضي الله عنه قال كنت مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في سفر فأصبحت يوما قريبا منه ونحن نسير فقلت يا رسول الله أخبرني بعمل يدخلني الجنة ويبعدني من النار. قال لقد سألتني عن عظيم وإنه ليسير على من يسره الله عليه تعبد الله ولا تشرك به شيئا تقيم الصلاة وتؤتي الزكاة تصوم رمضان وتحج البيت. ثم قال ألا أدلك على أبواب الخير الصوم جنة الصدقة تطفئ الخطيئة كما يطفئ الماء النار والصلاة الرجل في جوف الليل قال ثم تلا تتجافى جنوبهم عن المضاجع حتى بلغ يعملون ثم قال ألا أدلك على برأس الأمر كله وعموده وذروة سنامه بلى يا رسول الله. قال رأس الأمر الإسلام وعموده الصلاة وذروة سنامه الجهاد ثم قال ألا أخبرك بملاك ذلك كله قلت بلى يا نبي الله. أخذ بلسانه فقال كف عليك هذا. قلت يا نبي الله وإنا لمؤاخذون بما نتكلم به. فقال ثقلتك أمك يا معاذ وحال يكب الناس على النار على وجوههم أو على مناخرهم إلا حصائد ألسنتهم. رواه أحمد والترمذي وابن Majah. So, as I mentioned, this is a long hadith, but it has so many benefits, so we want to mention the entirety of it. So, Mu'adh radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates that he was actually traveling. In the beginning of this hadith begins with that he was actually traveling with Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. And it so happened that in the morning he found himself, kind of like private with Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he took the opportunity to ask him various things. So he said, Ya Rasulullah, inform me, Ya Rasulullah, of an act which will will enter me into the Jannah and will distance me from the hell. And I mentioned this to the students, in Dars, in the madrasa, that when we come to this hadith, that this is the sign of a talib al-ilm, a real student of knowledge. This is the kind of questions they ask. Who understands what is the meaning of knowledge. The ultimate outcome of knowledge should be, it should take us towards Jannah and save us from Jahannam. That's why we study the deen. That's why we tread the path of deen. And that will take place when we please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it informs us that Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu ta'ala, he was also mentioned that, Nabi also mentioned that he was, the most knowledgeable about halal and haram. And perhaps this also indicates one of the reasons, because he was truly talib al-ilm and he was looking into the outcomes of knowledge. Right? I want the outcome. I'm not just gathering information so I know things. I want information that's going to take me to Jannah, save me from Jahannam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. So Nabi alayhi salatu replied, you have asked about an extremely lofty issue, something magnanimous. However, but it's easy for one whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps. In other words, this is a very, very huge thing you're asking about. But even though it's lofty nature, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for the one whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives tawfiq. And so what is that? Worship Allah, ya'bud Allah, and don't associate any partner with Him. No, number one. Number two, observe prayer. Waqim as-salat. Not only observe it, but establish it. Establish salat. Pay zakat. And also, tu'tu zakat. So that zakat means that you're not only paying it, but you're ensuring that it goes to the people that are deserving of it. Fasting during Ramadan. Perform the Hajj to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, shall I not, and Nabi alayhi salatu continued, and he said, shall I not guide you to the gateways of goodness? Right? So what are they? Fasting is a protection. Fasting, Junnah, the siyam of Junnah, it's a protection. In so many ways, protecting our tongue, protecting our eyes, protecting our heart, our spirituality, protecting our physical health. Everything, it's a comprehensive package of protection. Allahu Akbar. If, of course, as we mentioned in other sessions, if we observe it as it should be observed with its etiquettes and its rules and regulations. Number two, or number three, I'm sorry. And the man's prayer in the middle of the night, salat of tahajjud. And then he recited this ayat from sort of Alif Lam Sajda. Alif Lam Sajda. تتجافى جنوبهم عن المضاجع يدعون ربهم خوفا وطمعا ومما رزقناهم فلا تعلم نفس ما أخفي لهم من قرة أعين جزاء بما كانوا يعملون. So basically the translation would be that they withdraw from their beds Now we should be getting accustomed to this in Ramadan because we're getting up for the suhoor in any case. So if we get up a little bit earlier and start practicing this highly virtuous act. So they rise up from their beds, which are, the most beloved, to the sleeping person. And they call for their Lord with hope and with fear. And from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for them, they spend it. So nobody, and probably the reference is also alluding to people who do this, and they would be doing other righteous deeds. So such people, they cannot even imagine what wonders and what pleasures and leisures and wondrous gifts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give them, that will give them coolness to their eyes and immense magnanimous pleasure as a reward from what they had been doing, as a reward of their actions. And so Nabi Sallallahu says that this is one of those gateways of khair. So much khair. That could be a whole discussion, and the fadail and the outcomes and benefits of salat al-tahajjud and ibadah in the middle of the night, particularly at the last third. It goes on and on and on and on. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us all tawfiq. Then he said, shall I not guide you to the head and support of the matter and the top of its hump? In other words, giving a simile of a camel. So the very head of it, is what? So he said, yes, Ya Rasulullah, absolutely. He said, the head of the matter is Islam. And he doesn't mean, the name Islam. He means the meaning of Islam. Islam means submission. So the whole sphere of Islam begins with the actual act as the word means, submission. So we now submit. We submit. We leave me, my, aside. We submit to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. Not what I want, not what I think, not what I desire, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. So Islam. And its support, ma'amud, the thing which supports the whole system, is salat. In another hadith, Nabi mentions the salat ibn deen, man aqamaha aqama deen, man hadma hadma deen. Who establishes salat, he establishes deen. Who destroys the salat, squanders it, wastes it, destroys the deen. So the support is deen, and the top of its hump is jihad. So one is the essence of Islam, and one is the pillar of Islam, and one is the protection of Islam. Jihad meaning struggle and striving, as we were talking about. This is the topic that we've been talking about every morning now for the past several mornings. Meaning a struggle and striving for whatever is appropriate to raise the kalimat of Allah, the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Now he said, now we come to the issue at hand. Then he said, shall I not inform you of the foundation of all of that? Milak. Milak means the thing that's going to crystallize the whole thing. What's going to bring it all to fruition? And I replied, yes, O Messenger of Allah. Definitely. He said, so he took his tongue and he said, restrain this. Get control of this tongue. Okay? Yes. O Prophet of Allah, shall we really be punished for what we talk? I mean, we're just talking. So Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam mentioned, may your mother be bereft of you. This is actually taqilat ka ummuk. So actually this is a expression in Arabic which means the opposite of what it appears to mean. In other words, may you be lost from your mother, or may your mother lose you. But it doesn't actually mean that. It means may Allah have mercy on you. So it would take a long time to explain that, but that's an idiom of the Arabic language, like qatalahu Allah, ma ahsanahu. May Allah fight with this guy. How wonderful is he? They don't mean that, So these are peculiarities of the Arabic language, and you only say this to someone that you love and you really have an endearment with. You don't say this to your enemy. You say this to someone that you're very closely connected with. You love. It's an endearment type of thing. Okay. Will anything plunge men into hell on their face? In another riwayat, manakhir. Manakhir is their nostrils. In other words, there's not going to be anything that's going to throw people into hell on their faces, on their noses, other than the harvest of their tongues. The harvest of their tongues. Hasa'ida al-sinatihim. And we will reap the harvest of our tongues. Either there, if we don't learn control, or we'll reap the harvest, there, in paradise. And if you think about it, everything is connected with the tongue. Entering into Islam starts with what? The tongue. Dhikrullah, on the tongue. Tilawat al-Quran, on the tongue. Da'wat ilallah, on the tongue. Kalimat al-Haq, speaking truth, on the tongue. So whatever's in the heart it is communicated, manifests on the tongue. You see? So all righteous things are connected with the tongue. So all things, that very close connection with all of our righteous actions, which will take us to Jannah, to connect with the tongue. And similarly, kalimat al-kufr. Kufr is what? Speaking the mention of disbelief, the mention of, negation of deen, and so forth. And all the other, crimes which are committed by the tongue. Falsehood, backbite, slandering, falsehood, false witness, etc., etc. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq to realize that this tongue needs to be controlled. It needs to be taken under, as we say, na'khud bi zamami. We need to take the reins of this very, very energetic beast, as it were. But if it's tamed, it will serve us well. So inshallah, we'll continue with this. There's much to say about this particular aspect, and inshallah, we'll continue this next Thursday. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Akhir da'wana, and alhamdulillah. Is there any questions, by the way? No questions? It's all very clear. Inshallah, we'll all act upon that.
Sheikh, you mentioned that there's talk that will benefit us and there's talk that will harm us. It's either one of those two. But is there a middle point of just senseless talk? It's not bad, it's not good, it's just talk. Is that like a bad category?
Suppose you were my employee and I told you, this is your portfolio, I want you to work in these things and complete these tasks. So in the middle of that, you pick up your phone and you're talking with your buddy, no harm, no ghibah, there was no slander. But what happened here?
I'm not working.
We were put here for a purpose. We were put here for a purpose to waste the time. That really gets me. People say, let's kill some time. Kill some time? What are you talking about? The time is killing you. We have time to spend. It's like ice. You put it out in the sun, it's going to melt. You put it into, drink, it'll serve some purpose. So it's going to melt in any case. We're getting closer every moment to our graves. We don't have time to waste. So, and therefore our pious ancestors were very, very careful about that. And I've seen my teachers, the top line of our Shaykh, they were very, very, a few words. My Shaykh Abdul Karim Farghani in Bukhari, rahmatullahi, he was a man of few words. In a very complicated book of fiqh, Hidayah, it's a very difficult book. So in Makkah, in Haram, he studied fiqh. So the dars would be, about a half an hour, and he would say 4 or 5 words. And he would direct us to do all the work, to study and find out the things. He would say a few words. One time I asked him, I said, Shaykh, because in those days we used to have the dars, he would go to the Shaykh and he would beg him to please give me 5 minutes. And then they would test you out and see how you are. And if they see you, if you deserve it, then they would give you more time. So I ultimately worked up quite a few hours, after Dhuhr, extra dars. So I'll never forget these words. So this was 40-some years ago. He said, وظيفة أخرى. So I said, he said, وظيفة أخرى means there is another work. He didn't tell me what was that work, and I have this, I'm sorry. He said, another work. In other words, I have another work at that time. Finish. No need for a 10-minute discussion. Why, yes, no, this is it. So our Aslaf were like that. And if you see the speech of our Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, it was direct to the point. And therefore the Arabs say, Khairul kalam ma qalla wa tanna. The best of speech is which is right to the point and it's short. Short and to the point. Did that answer your question? Hopefully. Any other questions? Anything on mind, King? No? Jazakumullah khair for attending. Inshallah, looking forward to seeing you again on Thursday. Remember, on Sunday also the Dars of Sirah. And the good news is that, alhamdulillah, we're back in the masjid and we actually have a physical class, which I'm just so elated about. Like, it was, it was in a vacuum and in a void. So, as well, the ladies section is also prepared now, alhamdulillah, we have the communication system there as well. So the ladies can also attend. And looking forward to having more and more people coming and joining physically in these classes. Tell your friends, tell your relatives, etc. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq, that whatever we hear, that He gives us the tawfiq to implement. Alhamdulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.